Hi, Clarissa, psychologist, psychotherapist, and today we're going to talk about the nice way to repair conflict in relationships. Today I'm going to be talking about rupture and repair in relationships. So many of us have got no idea how to do relationships properly. Our only template is often our own parents and the movie stars or the programs that we're watching. So we either have an emulation of some form of close relationship which will be programmed into us via conditioning from watching our parents, and if we had two parents, and how they reacted and how they dealt with conflict within the relationship. Or we have an idealized version of things from watching movies, where if conflict does occur, it either ends in disaster or some idyllic makeup scene. There are other ways of repairing a rupture or a conflict within a relationship. So first, let's examine what we mean by rupture or conflict. Basically, rupture is any time where there's the connection or the attunement within the relationship is lost. So the disconnect can occur from something very small and seemingly insignificant, but I want to beg the argument that it's not, where maybe one partner seems dismissive of something that was very important that the other partner said. Perhaps there was a lack of greeting or meeting you in a way that felt important or significant enough. Perhaps you got a promotion at work and you tell your partner, and your partner's like, all right, okay, well, I hope you can manage it. And you sort of feel, oh, ouch, that was really like, I just got promoted. Like, wouldn't you be excited for me? Why would you indicate that I might not be able to cope with the advance in role? And so there's a rupture in the sense of connection, in the sense that your partner is attuned to you and what you might have needed at that time, which could have been a hurrah or a pat on the back or some level of excitement. You know, this is where the partners are attuned. It's like, I'm excited. Are you excited with me? And so without that level of excitement being met, there can be a slight rupture. And for the partner that brought the news, depending on their level of sensitivity or the significance of this, they may deal with this in a way where they might kind of mention that, or they might do the avoidance where they just sort of let it go, but it kind of burns away underneath the surface. So we want to look at the immediacy of being able to present the rupture and repair it as soon as possible. If the partner who brought the exciting news feels unheard or unmet by the other partner, who could have any number of things going on, they might not even be properly paying attention. They might have listened to all of the pitfalls and the worries and the concerns of this partner, worrying about whether they were able to cope with the role increase, worried about whether they were going to get it, worried about if they could manage it, etc. And so they've heard all of the negative side of it, and that's the space that they're coming from. Or perhaps they've just had something disastrous happening in their life, and this comment about, I hope you can handle it, is actually more of a reflection of what's going on inside of them. Without the ability to talk about this immediately and head on, or at least in a timely fashion, if the default mode of dealing with this kind of rupture is to bury it away and put it in the box of potential resentments that may be in the back cupboard, then you've got that difficulty with being able to approach rupture, or let alone conflict when it happens. So that's the example of a small rupture in a relationship. And then we can slide the scale of rupture all the way to full-blown conflict within a relationship. So let's use that same situation. Let's say that the partner who brought the news home, who was met with this very pithy, almost perhaps offensive response, didn't bury it away, didn't let it slide, nor did they approach the problem in a constructive way. let's imagine that the partner who felt rebuffed by the reaction of their partner who they just told the news to starts to get defensive and attacking about the way the news was received without checking out what went on. And we'll talk about this later in the Noice way of dealing with conflict. So imagine this partner reacts in a completely different way. You what? You're like asking if I'm going to be able to cope? What do you mean by that? What do you think? I can't cope with my job? I mean, I've worked so hard for this and you just go and throw that back in my face? How dare you? So immediately they've escalated, they've been triggered, they feel insulted, and they are going on the offense toward the other partner. Now, we don't know what's going on for this other partner, why they reacted that way, because no questions were asked. Let's imagine that partner B has got a certain level of defensiveness in and of themselves. And rather than accepting that partner A might have felt a little let down by their response, they launch into a defensive argument in retaliation. What do you mean? I just said, I hope you can deal with it. I didn't mean anything bad by that. Gosh, you take everything so personally. You're so sensitive. Why can't you just relax? This is exactly what I mean, that you might not be able to handle it. Look at the way you just took my comment. And as you can see, within minutes, there's an argument happening. So let's backtrack and look at the Noice way of dealing with conflict and repairing ruptures or conflicts within relationship. Now, Noice is actually an acronym, Noice. If you've watched Kath and Kim in Australia, you'll know that Noice is another way of pronouncing nice. So it kind of works both ways. So first, the N stands for naming exactly what's going on. In the perfect world, partner who brought home the news, partner B, might have been able to say, hey, your response to my news felt a little bit offensive to me. And so they've named the problem. Now, that's much better than going away with that and not approaching the problem at all, because that can lead to distance and a very shallow relationship when issues cannot be dealt with at the time. That hurt could have got stored away, and without it being addressed sooner rather than later, I mean, it might not have had to be in that red hot moment. The person may have needed some time to go, oh, was that appropriate? No, it wasn't. I'm going to say something. But to be able to sort of mention it rather than also the alternate, launch into being hurt, offended, and acting in an offensive way is going to also be better. So let's say that person goes, hey, ouch, that was an odd response. Wouldn't you be happy for me? Right? So there's a question in there at least. If the other partner can then receive that and go, oh gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I was miles away. I had the worst day. Yeah, you're right. Oh, I'm so sorry, right? I did do that. So that's the O, the ownership. You've got to own your role in the rupture or the conflict within the relationship. Person that was delivering the news had to own their hurt or their feeling of being dismissed. And the other partner had to own the fact that that was how it landed on that person. So much goes wrong in these stages. If you've got people that are very quick to be triggered and attack, and another partner that's very likely to defend or become prideful and refuse to acknowledge that they've done anything wrong, you'll have people that stand their ground and they're like, I didn't mean it like that. You're just too sensitive. That blaming and shaming of the person who's hurt and upset, that's where disasters happen. So your ability to be able to tolerate criticism yourself, to be able to acknowledge when you might have offended your partner, to care enough about the relationship and the connection within the relationship to own your role in upsetting your partner. And they may have a level of sensitivity around it. That's not the point in question. If you're partnered up with someone that you think's way too sensitive, then maybe look at how you are way too harsh or way too blunt. Right? If you want to have a healthy, lasting relationship, you have to be able to look at yourself and your own behaviors that are not pro-relationship. So, both partners have named the issue and they have owned their part in it, N-O. The next step is I, the impact of the rupture on each other and the relationship. Now, as I just mentioned, we want people in relationships that are pro the relationship, not stuck in two different ports in their incessant need to be right. This is where a lot of problems happen also, is that people cannot take responsibility for their impact of their behavior on another person because of their attachment to always being right and never being wrong. So if each party can acknowledge the impact of what happened on the potential relationship moving forward, because when there's a rupture, how do you come back together? If there is a rupture in a relationship, somehow that is being co-created. So C stands for curiosity over the co-creation of that rupture. How did it happen that when the partner came home with their exciting news, the other partner was completely indifferent, if not dismissive and a little bit disparaging about the news? How did these two people co-create this discontinuity and the disconnection in their alignment within the relationship at that time? If you can approach anything with an attitude of curiosity, you are miles ahead from where you would have been if you're approaching things from an attitude of a clutching to being right. Pride is hard to penetrate. And so if people are standing in a position of, I'm hurt, but I'm right and you're wrong, then you have a fight. You've got two people in each corner and within a Mexican standoff, and nothing's going to happen from there. Now, if this happens, if this is two people that are quick to ignite and there's a tinderbox of issues happening at that time, it might be provident at some point to take some time out. And whenever I advise couples to take time out, the proviso is that there is a limit on that time. Because if you've got one person who's more anxiously attached and the other one is more avoidant, the avoidant is going to want to leave and hope that the other one cools down. But the anxious one is going to get more anxious during that time. So if one partner says, look, I'm feeling really triggered right now, I need some time to calm down so I can actually talk about this, because it's really difficult to be curious when you're inflamed, then to contract on how long that time would be. So we can add another C in here, is that if curiosity about the co-creation of the issue within the relationship isn't possible, then contract to have some time out for either partners to process what's happened and to calm and self-regulate, and make sure that there is a time limit on that. And let's say you need at least 20 minutes to cool down. I mean, if you're flooded, emotionally flooded, that is the gold standard time to come back into your senses and your right mind from being emotionally triggered and overwhelmed, could be approximately 20 minutes. Some people might need longer. I think a few days is pushing it a lot, depending on the magnitude of what's happened. But to say 20 minutes, I need to calm down, I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to go into a space and process what just happened, and then I'm either going to come back and we can talk about it, or I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you I need another 10 minutes. I'm not quite there yet. And so there's a clear holding structure around that. So one partner isn't feeling abandoned and the other one isn't getting an opportunity to abandon them, essentially. And so you've named it, you've owned your role in it, you've acknowledged the impact of the rupture on each other and the relationship. and you've either contracted to take some time out, or you've engaged in a conversation that involves curiosity over the co-creation of the issue in the relationship. And then you get to E, and that is exploring ways forward. Now, at some point during this, one partner may have apologized, or they may not have. That might not have been appropriate. But if it's appropriate, then I hope that one partner that has more or less initiated the rupture in the relationship has brought themselves to a point where they can genuinely apologize in a way that clearly identifies that they know what happened and what they did, that they are taking responsibility for it, and that they are exploring ways that that will not happen or is less likely to happen in the future. Just saying sorry is often not enough. And not being able to say sorry is also very interesting. So that might be something that's personal to you. It might be an issue of pride, shame, humiliation, or a dead set power struggle. And let's face it, most relationships are a battle for power and control. It's basically the essence of all human relationships. So I'm not saying it's bad or wrong. It simply is. And the more we can acknowledge that, the closer we are to actually having a really good, intimate, close, connected relationship. But if you've got one person who refuses to budge, then you're going to have difficulties moving forward in that relationship. So you want to be able to get to a point where you can together explore ways forward. Like, okay, are we back on track now? Are we good now? Is the apology sufficient? Or can we also look at the fact that often other people, in their striving for power and control, once they have the acknowledgement of the problem, they can take that and tend to want to punish the other person. Now, this is also problematic. It's just as problematic as someone being prideful and defenseful is someone's desire to really punish someone for doing something that maybe isn't warranting a high level of punishment. You know, ideally you both want to get the relationship back on track, you want to get reconnected, you want to feel good. Because when there's a rupture in a relationship, both parties suffer. You are in the same boat. If one person has fallen off into the water and is grabbing at the side of the boat because they're drowning in the issue, and the other one's there going, oh, it's not my problem, you know, you've got too much baggage weighing you down. You know, I just said something, I didn't mean it. If you've got a problem with it, you've got a problem. You're still, the one in the boat is still going to be imbalanced. The relationship is off track. The other partner is suffering. How on earth can that partner stay good and well long term down the track? You're looking at the general overall health of the relationship. So the faster and the more effectively you can repair ruptures and conflicts within the relationship, the better it's going to be for everyone, and the more skills you're going to have in this relationship and all other relationships moving forward. So I hope you've enjoyed my Noice way of dealing with conflict and rupture in relationships and how to repair them. Naming what happened, owning your role in it, acknowledging the impact on each other and the relationship, being curious about the co-creation of the conflict in the relationship, and exploring ways forward. So I hope this has helped you develop more harmony and health within your relationship. And if you have enjoyed this video and got something out of it, please give me a like and subscribe if you'd like to hear more from me. I'm going to do a lot more talks on relationships now moving forward. And I hope you have a wonderful, happy day.